Where did you learn about manners, ethics, values? Where did you learn about God? While some of us went to Sunday school and vacation church school, some of us went to seminary. The place in which I learned about manners and God and faith, ethics, values, was at the dining room table. While our family had a variety of different schedules, oftentimes with meetings in the evenings, oftentimes with school schedules that started as early as 6 o'clock in the morning and sports activities that went on into the evening, we always made an effort to gather together at the dining room table. We gathered together Sundays for a noon meal. We used the good china, we used the good silver, we sat at table together after the meal, asking questions and hearing answers, sharing together from one generation to another with our grandparents there as well. It was at the dining room table that we learned to say please and thank you, that we learned to not kick our brother under the table, that we learned how to not spill our milk and how not to get upset when it did. We learned how to forgive. We learned about the seasons and the changes in life that happen. It was here that we learned about God, and we told the stories of faith. Part of the difficulty of the world today is that families rarely gather around the table for dinner, where we made an effort every day. Families rarely gather together on Sundays for a meal together and spend time talking and simply being together. Somehow, in listening to each other, in sharing together, we heard stories we otherwise would never have heard. Stories about our ancestors were nomads who came from a far distant place, and when they were in need, when they felt alone with nothing, they cried out to God, and they knew that they were heard, and they were not alone. When relatives died, when children were born, they knew that God was there, and they would continue. They knew that when their ancestors had been slaves and indentured servants, they cried out to God, and God heard their concerns, and God responded. Every generation, God has been there for us, both as the creator and redeemer and sustainer of life. But when we fail to tell the stories, other stories come in instead. Stories about who's greatest and who's most powerful and who has the most toys and who has the greatest wealth. And we begin to worship our mortgages and our mansions instead of worshiping God. And we create other priorities for life. We need to tell the story. We need to sit at table together. While the crucifixion is a vital piece in the story of Jesus Christ, just as is the resurrection, in the early church, as well as in Judaism before, the vital piece was gathering at the table together and sharing our faith story. I'm Lindsey, the pastor at the First Presbyterian Church here in Skaneateles, New York.